Welcome back to the still terribly named Okay Not Okay podcast. I am the SportsZu, and today we are betting Saturday night's main event number 37, taking place on December 14th, 2024, since we're going to have 4 of those every single year. And this one will be coming to you from the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum in Uniondale, New York on Long Island, where the very first Saturday night's main event took place all the way back in 1985. And we'll get to the history in a second, but first, let's, as always, recap the prior PLE, which is Survivor Series War Games. And just about as usual, we went 4-1 in our picks to bet and picks to win. Our only loser was Shinsuke Nakamura, defeated LA Knight. We had Knight at -300, so that one does sting just a little bit, but can't complain too much. It was a good decision by WWE. I just didn't think they would pull the trigger quite that quickly, so good for them. Nonetheless, we march on, 80% hit rate there, not too shabby. There were no props yet again for some reason, but nonetheless, that takes our overall record to 39-9 in picks to win, which is 81.25%, and 35-13 for 72.92% win rate for picks to bet. And since there were no props, we are still sitting at 16-4 there for 80%. All right, so with that, let's go to our history of Saturday night's main event, because you can always learn something from the WWE if you just look to the past. So, since this is number 37, that means we've had 36 prior Saturday nights main events. Now that does exclude some house shows or WWE live events that they gave that name just a few years ago, but obviously no one's paying attention to those. So let's just talk about the ones that were actually on TV. So the first one was in that same building on Long Island all the way back on May 10th, 1985. And there was a 4-match card on that particular night. So I just want to say a few things about that card. The very first match was a 6-man tag that was won by the US Express and Ricky Steamboat, so it would be really nice to see if Uncle Howdy could make an appearance on Saturday night. Then in the second match, and I'm not sure why it was second, but Hulk Hogan defended the WWF Championship by winning in a DQ against Cowboy Bob Orton. And sure, Hogan was going to win that one anyways. He did hit the leg drop, and he just had the count broken up by Rowdy Roddy Piper. So he was going to win, but I don't know. That's kind of sounds like something we might want to pay attention to for later tonight. In the third match, we had Wendy Richter defend her WWF Women's Championship with Cyndi Lauper in her corner, defeating the fabulous Moolah. And then in the main event, it was the Junkyard Dog defeating Pete Doherty. So if there's just one thing I want you to take away from the history of Saturday night's main event, it is definitely this: the champions retain. So let's talk about the numbers here. In the 31 events from the original run of Saturday night's main event from May of 1985 through October of 1992, there were 48 title matches, and the champion won his or her match outright by any method 36 of those 48 times, which is 75% of the time. Then the champion retained the title either by a DQ, or by a countout, or by a double DQ, or by a double countout in 10 of those matches, which is 20.83%. And then a title actually changed hands only 2 times out of 48 matches, which is 4.17%. 2 times out of 48 matches, and on top of that, those titles were the WWF Tag Team Championships 1 time and the Intercontinental Championship 1 time. And those title changes took place at Saturday night's main events, numbers 22 and 31. so not even close to anywhere near the beginning. So out of all of that, there was never a WWE or World Championship, men's or women's, that changed hands in a Saturday night's main event. So if people sometimes drag on the Saudi events for being glorified house shows, I think you just might wake up on Sunday morning and think to yourself, yeah, well, maybe this was also pretty much just like a house show. So with that, let's get to making our picks, and unfortunately the women's US title tournament finals do not have odds posted, which makes sense because we haven't even gotten through the semifinals yet, so that would be difficult to do since we are filming on Thursday afternoon, so there is no way to know as there are no spoiler alerts to be had for this particular event. So we will end the video by making a pick there, but just remember, no matter what we say there, it is not going to count for our record going forward, as there's nothing to bet on at this time. But of course, if you really want to bet on it, be sure to check back on Saturday morning, and there just might be some odds that are posted. So with that, let's go to our 4 matches that we want to talk about with the odds, starting with our one non-title match, which is Drew McIntyre at minus 1500 for a 93.75% implied probability, taking on Sami Zayn at plus 600 for a 14.29% implied probability. And this match just quickly came together on Monday Night Raw with Sami Zayn just blurting it out in the middle of the ring. And since Drew McIntyre just returned 1 week ago, there's just not a lot to go off of. However, I think it's safe to say that Drew McIntyre needs this win a lot more than Sami Zayn does. McIntyre obviously took a lot of time off after losing his rivalry to CM Punk, so WWE needs to reheat up McIntyre for whatever they have planned next, and if he doesn't get moved in the transfer portal, it certainly seems like he'll be taking on main event Jey Uso next, and then perhaps even going on to face Roman Reigns, since he seems to want to go after the bloodline right now. So let's just say this seems pretty easy that Drew McIntyre's got to win this one. And of course, we know Sami Zayn is pretty much bulletproof at this point. He does not need to win this for any reason. He's not going after any titles. He is probably doing bloodline-related things going forward, so he'll kind of be shielded around that no matter what. So he's going to be just fine. It doesn't matter. Drew McIntyre, easy pick to win and to bet at minus 1500. Okay, now we have 3 title matches. First, we'll start with the Intercontinental Championship, which got turned into a triple threat on Monday Night Raw, which was pretty terrible. It certainly did not need that. Would have been nice to see Finn Balor get a one-on-one match against Gunther. That could have torn the house down, but instead we'll get a triple threat. But, you know, those are usually pretty good matches too, so I'm sure this one will also be pretty good, even though I think it's safe to say that Gunther is almost certainly going to retain here, and he is our favorite at minus 3,000 for a 96.77% implied probability, with Balor second at plus 800 for 11.11%, and Priest at plus 1,200 for 7.69%. So yeah, as we always say, in a triple threat, the general rule is that the champion retains. So is there any reason to pick against that here? I mean, Balor actually seems to be the focal point of this story, so he still has issues with Priest, he still has issues with Gunther, and it seems like the main thing is that we're heading towards a Judgment Day breakup at some point. So even though the Judgment Day will probably try to help him win this one, it remains to be seen that maybe someone like Dirty Dom might accidentally mess up and cost him this title. Well, regardless, there's going to be a lot going on since a triple threat is a no DQ match, and that will give Gunther the opportunity to swoop in and he'll defeat one of them, doesn't really matter who, but probably Balor, and he will retain. He is our pick to win and pick to bet at minus 3,000. All right, up next is our Women's World Championship match between Liv Morgan at minus 1,500 for a 93.75% implied probability, and Io Sky, we will assume, is at plus 600 for a 14.29% implied probability. But words of caution here before we get started. So backstory here, looking at this throughout the week, there were no odds posted. So I was just gonna come in here, make some picks like everybody else does on the internet, and just kind of go home happy, say, this doesn't matter for my record. It's gonna be basically just some practice, just for fun. But right before I was ready to start filming, I decided to look one more time on the website, and sure enough, there were odds posted. So when I looked, Liv's odds were actually minus 2,000, and Io's odds were locked. And I said, uh-oh, what's going on here? There must be something happening here. Maybe a lot of money is strangely being placed onto Io to win this thing. So I did try to Google this match, but I didn't see any spoilers listed anywhere. Not that there necessarily should be spoilers listed anywhere. So then right before I was finally ready to do this, after putting in more effort to do this like a full show like we are doing now, sure enough, Liv's odds had fallen from minus 2,000 down to minus 1,500, and Io's odds were still locked. So I was going to assume Io was at plus 700, and now that's tightened to plus 600. So, that's interesting. Somebody's putting some money on Io. So keep checking back on this one as we get closer to match time. And maybe if the odds are going violently in Io's direction, maybe someone really knows something and people in the know with that smart money know that Io just might win this thing. But despite that, I don't think anyone that actually knows or might know what is going to happen would already be placing money onto this. I think they would wait until the very last minute to do that. So I think it's safe to ignore that for now. But again, go back closer to match time and double check. So for these purposes, we're going to make our analysis assuming all is fair and square. And so that means I think it's safe to say we're going to get a lot of shenanigans on both sides here. You know the Judgment Day, especially Raquel, will be helping out. That means the damage control is probably also going to have to come out. And you know Rhea Ripley is going to be making an appearance in this first Saturday night's main event. So yeah, a lot's going to go on here. And maybe at the end of the day, it'll be Dom yet again finding a way to help Liv retain here. And if you watched last week's WrestleMania predictions, you know that I think that Rhea will defeat Liv at the premiere of Raw on Netflix. So it just doesn't make sense to me to change the title right now. But that weird ending of Monday Night Raw does worry me a little bit, with Io grabbing the title and then having Rhea also grab it as the way to end the show. So it may just happen that Io wins this thing, and that sets up Rhea to face her for the title on that Netflix premiere. But I don't think so. I think that's still our WrestleMania match, so I think that's a very early tease for that. So I'm going to say that Liv retains here, so we get Liv and Rhea for the title in our very first match on that premiere of Netflix. So yeah, for now, even though with a little trepidation with what I saw today, we're gonna go with Liv as the pick to bet and the pick to win at minus 1,500. And in our last title match for the undisputed WWE Championship, it is Cody Rhodes at minus 1,000 for a 90.91% implied probability, taking on Kevin Owens at plus 550 for a 15.38% implied probability. And quite frankly, I don't know if this match is even going to happen. We saw Kevin Owens take out Randy Orton before the match even started at Crown Jewel, and I'm not so sure that just isn't going to happen again. So let's just go past that, because that would wipe out the bet completely. So let's assume that we actually get to a match, and that leads us to the first thing that we just saw on social media, that Triple H presented Cody Rhodes with something in a strange looking box that would surely look to be holding the winged Eagle Championship back for just one night. Yeah, if anything makes sense, Cody's walking in and out with that Winged Eagle Championship for this first ever Saturday night's main event. But since I wanted to bring up the first ever Saturday night's main event card all the way back in 1985 with Hulk Hogan defeating Bob Orton, I think it's appropriate to talk about that here. Now, we've not seen a certain competitor from that match's son in quite a while since he took a pile driver from Kevin Owens. But if WWE wants to make this a full circle moment, wouldn't the best possible scenario be here for Cody Rhodes to hit that crossroads on Kevin Owens, and when he goes for the cover, Randy Orton comes out of the crowd and then shocks everyone by attacking Cody Rhodes. Now that would give Rhodes the DQ win in the exact same way as Hulk Hogan picked up a DQ win in the first ever Saturday night's main event, which would be a really amazing thing to see and would set some pretty cool things up for the future leading into the Royal Rumble. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen, especially because that might be making Orton's recovery from a pile driver be a little bit too soon, but I certainly think we should keep that in our head. But regardless, I think it's pretty safe to say that this one's going to end with a DQ one way or another. Now, probably KO is going to hit him with a steel chair or do another pile driver, something to that effect that just does not let this be a clean victory. So regardless, Owens is going to take a loss because he's just going to be too overwhelmed with rage, and Rhodes will find a way to get a win no matter what. Now, of course, we do have to worry a little bit that the DQ will go in the other direction, but for this first one, I don't think so. Rhodes, he's our pick to bet and pick to win at -1,000. And with our official picks now in, let's have some fun with the Women's United States Championship Tournament, semifinals and finals. So we're going to look at this a little bit differently. So we do have two semifinal matches. First, Bayley and Chelsea, and second, Michin and Tiffy. So I'm going to rank the most likely finals matchups. So let's count those down. At number 4, Bayley versus Michin. I think this is the least likely matchup that we will get, and it might be the best in-ring matchup that we could get, so that's a little sad. However, there's absolutely no story here, and these are two clear baby faces. So if we somehow got this match, I think it would be to make someone look really good who was underappreciated. That, of course, is Michin. So by having her defeat someone who has been so good throughout their careers in Bayley, that would really give Michin something really great and something to build on for the future, because she's actually finally on a little bit of a winning streak. So this would really solidify that. So in this matchup, I would take Michin. At number 3, which is our third most likely match to happen, I have Chelsea against Michin. Now, I think we've seen enough of this match already. Pretty much for months, it was Chelsea and Piper against Michin. Lots of kendo sticks, lots of trash cans, and of course, the blow-off match with the dumpster match that Michin was victorious in. So I don't think we need to see any more of this, folks. I think we've had enough of it. And so if we see it here, I guess that would finally be the ultimate conclusion to it. So if it does happen, I think it would be Chelsea to get the final win here with help from Piper, of course, to get revenge for losing that dumpster match. So in this matchup, I'll take Chelsea Green. At number 2, our second most likely match, I'm gonna go with Bayley versus Tiffany Stratton. Here we actually have a real current storyline, which never seems to ever end, between Bayley and Naomi against Nia, Tiffy, and now even Candice. So that just goes on because there just aren't any other real contenders for the Women's WWE Championship. So this just puts that on another title, so we would simply have even more matchups between these two groups. So I don't think we really want to see that, but these are the two top women in this tournament that are left. So if you simply want to go by the biggest draws here, this is obviously it. So in this particular matchup, we don't need to give Tiffy anything else. She's already got that Money in the Bank briefcase. So yeah, here we're going to have Nia fail to help Tiffy one way or another. That's going to lead to Tiffy going back to focusing on cashing in on Nia. And here, Bayley gets the win to be the US champion. And our number one most likely matchup for the Women's United States title tournament finals, it is Chelsea Green against Tiffany Stratton. And although we haven't heard much between these two groups lately, if you remember, way back a few months ago, Chelsea and Piper were constantly nagging Nia and Tiffy by saying that Tiffy was not a loyal friend and subject. Instead, she was just using her alliance with Nia as a ploy to get close to her and cash in on her. Now, like I said, we haven't heard much out of this lately, but it is something we can go back to as a storyline for this matchup, which is good enough here. And it also, more importantly, gives Chelsea the chance to finally, officially become a babyface by taking on that nasty Tiffy. So of course, in this matchup, Tiffy gets the comeuppance and Chelsea wins with Piper's help being better than Nia's help. So Chelsea, in this scenario, also becomes your Women's US title holder. So let's just rank them now from least likely to win to most likely to win. I don't see any scenario where Tiffy wins here, though I think there's a really good chance she at least gets to the finals. So she's at number 4. Michin will probably not even make it to the finals, but if she does, I think she's got a better chance than Tiffy, so she's at number 3. Then whoever wins on that left side of the bracket has the better chance to win, so I've got Bayley at number 2, and then Chelsea is the most likely to win, so we will say that Chelsea defeats Tiffy in the finals of the Women's United States tournament. So there you have it. There are our picks for Saturday night's main event number 37. And I guess we'll just have to see how this goes, because the next, well, event? I guess we can't call it a premium live event because it's a free live event, but it'll be on NBC and Peacock, and you can watch it there again in January, because that will happen again the weekend before the Royal Rumble. So that will be our next betting podcast as well. So remember to never bet any more than you can afford to lose, but at least all of us can enjoy this one since it will be on NBC and Peacock. So I'm the SportsZu, and this has been the OK Not OK podcast.